You guys, we need to talk about this. I don't know if this has happened to you guys with these palettes here. This is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension palette, but I just grabbed the more like rosy color one, and there's some like fuzzy white stuff in the eyeshadow. I don't even want to touch this. Like, I don't even want to know what that is.
And the controversy behind the moldy makeup that we're seeing in Patrick Ta, and I wanted to dive deeper into that today. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. So we're going to be using my Shop My Stash items today. This was actually in a recent upload where we shopped my stash, cleaned out my makeup bag, and recurated it. And I'm sitting in front of my Christmas tree today. I know my Christmas tree is still up, but I'm actually going to be decorating it for Valentine's Day. So stay tuned for a shorts on my channel. I'm going to be posting a short form video just of like how I decorated it and how I'm going to make it Valentine's-y to keep my tree up a little bit longer, because if you don't know me, I love Christmas and I love my Christmas tree. Like it's white. It looks like faux snow and it's still really snowy here in upstate New York, so I wanted to do like a Valentine's themed Christmas tree. So technically it's not going to be a Christmas tree, it's going to be a Valentine's tree, right? If you are new here, my name is Stacy. I feature unfiltered makeup opinions, honest reviews, tutorials, that sort of thing. And if you like content like that, then definitely consider subscribing. I have a document full of things, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. But I have a document all about the Patrick Ta controversy. This is something that I mentioned in one of my other unfiltered videos about the Patrick Ta eyeshadow duos that released at the end of 2024. And I told you guys in that video, again, if you haven't seen it, I will put it in the eye for you guys, but go check it out. It's all about some like unfiltered things with makeup news. And in that video, I talked about Patrick Ta and the controversy behind the moldy makeup that we're seeing in Patrick Ta. And I wanted to dive deeper into that today. I just realized this is what happens every single time that I do like an unfiltered video. I completely forget. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing my makeup. Well, I'm talking to you guys about this controversial topic. I wouldn't say it's controversial, but this is definitely some unfiltered thoughts that I have about the Patrick Ta moldy makeup issue and just like everything that's going around with this brand in general. I do not have anything Patrick Ta. Patrick Ta is more of a higher end brand, and their palettes retail for upwards of like $70, $80. And there have been issues with mold in his makeup. So let's talk about it today. Let's talk about the whole controversy behind Patrick Ta and some of the things that are happening with Patrick Ta. Okay, if you're into luxury brands, chances are you've probably seen or used Patrick Ta. He's all over TikTok. He is definitely used here in the YouTube space. And the brand is known for high-end professional quality makeup. Patrick Ta is a professional makeup artist and he released his own brand, and he's pretty popular. So what some people would refer to as like a cult following. He does have a really pretty big following, and his makeup line can now be found at Sephora and also on his website. So he is in a pretty mainstream retailer. But recently there's been a lot of like trouble and concerning things around Patrick Ta and Patrick Ta's brand. It has actually come to light that there may be mold in his product, and there have been several creators who have talked about this controversial topic. I can try and leave some of their videos linked down below. His controversy over moldy makeup has been talked about. I would say Kiki Chanel is a big channel that has actually talked about the Patrick Ta controversy and how his makeup is moldy and how there's a lot of controversy behind it. Again, I touched base about this controversy in an unfiltered opinions video, and we talked about a couple of things in that video. And one of them was Patrick Ta, and I have a lot more to talk about and say about this topic in general, because when we hear of moldy makeup, we think dirty, dingy, that's gross. Why aren't they doing anything about it? And so that's what we're talking about. So in the past few months, multiple customers have come forward claiming that they have found mold or like growth in their makeup.
Okay, so I'm in the middle of doing my makeup. I ordered
things from Patrick Ta for the first time on Cyber Monday or Black Friday or whatever. There was some really good deals. I was really excited to get the Major Dimension 2 eyeshadow palette. And I was just filming a video and doing an eyeshadow look, and I looked down, and I swear to God, if this ain't mold, I don't know what it is if it's not mold. But it looks like mold in my eyeshadow palette. Hold tight. Okay, there she is. I mean, looks like mold to me, folks. What the actual F? I really don't understand. Ugh.
Now, it is not uncommon. Like, we have actually had some other makeup brands that have been caught in this kind of like controversy before, where customers were finding mold in their makeup. Melt Cosmetics is one that comes to mind because I had a friend who had a Melt palette and she got it replaced from Melt because it had mold in it. And it is kind of looked down upon. I'm not gonna lie. These are in Patrick Ta eyeshadows. That's what we've mostly been noticing them in. And then also it's been noticed in some of his other powder products. So like his powder cream blush duos, they've noticed. Some people have had some funky things going on with that. So it's definitely been noticed in the beauty space that, there's something going on and there may be mold issues with the Patrick Ta product. Anyway, so beauty lovers on Reddit, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok have shared photos and videos of small fuzzy looking spots in their makeup. And some of them have even claimed that the palettes developed these spots shortly after they purchased them, which is that's so concerning because I mean, it's just off the shelf and then all of a sudden they're seeing these random weird like moldy spots in their makeup. Like that's very concerning to me, especially considering the price tag of Patrick Ta's eyeshadows. If I remember right, his Major Dimensions eyeshadows retail for upwards of like I want to say $75. In any case, his if you just think about it, he just released these eyeshadow duos for Christmas. They were two pearlescent eyeshadows, and he charged $42 for those. $42. Anyway, so of course, the internet, being the internet, people started debating like, is there mold? Is it a manufacturing defect? That sort of thing. Or is it the way that people are storing their makeup? So there's definitely been a lot of back and forth about like, okay, maybe you aren't storing your makeup properly. Maybe it's not in a cool, dry place. Maybe it's, being exposed to moisture. And maybe it's, getting mold that way. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of controversy about the mold issue. Okay, with that being said, there has been a lot of controversy behind the response from Patrick Ta as well. So people are finding mold in their makeup. It's not something that is unheard of. Like in the makeup space, we have heard of other brands having problems with mold before, like I mentioned before. But as expected, the brand did respond. And Patrick Ta he came on and he addressed the issues. So let's talk about that. He said that they conducted an internal investigation and found no mold present in their products. Instead, they suggested that what people were seeing could possibly be a reaction to certain ingredients and air exposure. So Patrick Ta does have an official statement on their website, and I will link that page in the description box down below. But they say formulations in our eyeshadow. Our Major Dimension 2 Rose eyeshadow palette contains a unique variety of eyeshadow formulations, some of which contain high percentages of oils and waxes which are susceptible to temperature fluctuations. A temperature fluctuation, such as extreme cold, produces a visual blooming of the waxes in the formula. We have performed extensive testing to confirm that this blooming is in the formula is not mold or bacteria of any form. It is simply a formation due to temperature, and the product is safe to continue to use for the eye area. They also go on to explain how to prevent the oils and waxes from malformation in the eyeshadow palette. They say that your experience with our product is very important to us given the temperature sensitive nature of many cosmetic formulas, especially those with creamier textures like those found in the Major Dimension 2. We encourage our customers to be mindful. Do not store your cosmetics in areas that are exposed to extreme temperatures, such as your vehicle or in a checked luggage during long haul flights. And he said that that could cause a visual change in the eyeshadow over time. Now, for some consumers, this explanation was not enough, but for others, it felt like damage control rather than like, addressing the actual situation and coming up with a solution. Let's be honest, luxury eyeshadows developing weird growth, like that's a bit sketch to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like even with the lame excuse, and I'm gonna say lame because that's my unfiltered opinion, it is a lame excuse. But even with the lame excuse of saying that it's being exposed to oxygen and it's, changing the look of and color of the eyeshadow and it's growing these white moldy things. Let's be honest. Luxury eyeshadow developing any kind of weird look texture to it, like you pay for the quality of luxury makeup and then all of a sudden it starts growing and showing weird things. That is very concerning. The fact that Patrick Ta definitely is covering this up with a half-baked excuse and not really addressing the problem is really concerning as well. Now, if you guys don't remember, there was a controversial thing going on not too long ago. I mean, we've talked about, there have been other brands that have experienced like mold in their makeup and they have addressed it, like Melt Cosmetics. Melt Cosmetics addressed the mold in their makeup and they would actually replace your eyeshadow palette if you proved that you had mold in your Melt eyeshadow palette, and they would replace it for you for free. And that had something to do with the clean ingredients that they were using in their makeup products, and they were molding and people knew that they were molding. Now we've had other companies that are now they're discontinued. These companies are closed, but a good example would be Jaclyn Hill and how she addressed the issues that were known in her lipsticks. Now, keep in mind with the Jaclyn Hill controversy, and I will try and link some videos in the description box down below if you guys don't really know about the Jaclyn Hill controversy. But at the end of the day, with Jaclyn Hill's first makeup release, she did have a lot of problems with her first makeup release, which were her lipsticks, and they came back as not necessarily moldy, but a lot of people were finding random things in the lipstick, like hairs, and some people claimed that there was mold, but at the end of the day, after a lot had happened, Jaclyn Hill recalled her lipsticks and she gave everybody a full refund because there were hairs in lipsticks. There was a lot of problems with Jaclyn's lipstick release. And she did the right thing and she ended up recalling her lipsticks and giving people full refunds. Now that's a huge hit for a brand to take just starting out. If you ask me, like in my humble opinion, that is a huge hit for a brand to take when they are just starting out. And yes, she did fight it at first, but at the end of the day, she did do the right thing and she issued full refunds to everybody. But coming from a standpoint of Patrick Ta, who is a professional makeup artist, and he is trying to pass off this mold issue as just, it's been exposed to the elements and it's growing fuzz. Um, and not really addressing the issue, it really feels like he's very well known, and you would think that he would address this in more of a concerning way, and instead of saying like, oh, we didn't find mold, be on the cautious side, listen to your consumers, and maybe issue a refund to them or a replacement to them instead of scapegoating and gaslighting onto something else. Should we as consumers be concerned about the Patrick Ta response, but also should we be concerned about the simple fact that like there may be mold in these eyeshadows? And okay, let's talk about, that whole controversy. Like I said, it should have been, yes, he says and he claims that he did an internal investigation and that they didn't find mold, but at the end of the day, something weird is showing up and they really can't, they're just, writing it off as, the ingredients are exposed to the air and it's changing something to make the makeup look funny. We have so many makeup brands on the market that are exposed to air all the time, and do you see them forming weird growth? No, we don't see them. We don't see that happen hardly ever, and that's why I said it's such a gaslighting technique. It is such a scapegoating policy. Like it definitely just didn't answer any questions. It just kind of pawned off the explanation as half baked, and some people fell for it and some people didn't. So anyway, should we be concerned? Here's why people are still skeptical about this entire situation. Not only like the whole half-baked, like, oh, it's the air being exposed to the makeup. Like my makeup is exposed to the air all the time and I don't get weird growth in this makeup. And this is I mean, this is drugstore. This is not a luxury makeup brand. You know, like this is a drugstore product. And not to say that, you know, it's lacking in ingredients or anything, but it's just to make a point that I have drugstore products that aren't molding and they're exposed to the air all the time. So anyway, so there was lack of third-party testing. While the brand claims that there is no mold, we have to take their word for it. Independent testing was not shared, which leaves room for doubt. So it was just a statement by the brand. We don't know if they did independent third-party testing. We don't know how this testing was done. It wasn't really alluded to. So, like I said, it sounds like a huge like scapegoating, gaslighting technique. So lack of third-party testing. Number two, makeup safety matters. I don't want moldy eyeshadow on my eyes. So you know what that does to your eyes? It gives you an eye infection, okay? Just putting it out there. So even if it is not mold, unexpected changes in texture, appearance, or smell in your makeup raise a red flag. And if a product seems off, it's always better to err on the side of caution. So if you know, okay, let's say it's not mold and it's just the ingredients being exposed to the air. How do we know that those ingredients aren't going bad? Maybe it's not necessarily mold, but maybe the product is just expiring. And again, because we don't really have knowledge of third-party testing, how do we know that his conclusions are real? Now, number three, luxury pricing, high expectations. As we've stated before, Patrick Ta is very expensive. It is luxury. Says when consumers spend $70 or more on an eyeshadow palette, they expect quality in that product. If there's any question about contamination, it damages trust in the brand. So again, you're paying you're paying for quality and you're paying a pretty penny for it, and then all of a sudden you're finding mold in your makeup. Like how does that make sense? That's my biggest question. Like, how does that make sense? Especially when there's the expectation that, you know, I'm getting a quality product and then all of a sudden it's showing signs of mold. So as a marketing professional, that is what my full-time job is. I own my own digital marketing company. So I know a lot about marketing and how I know a lot about PR. Like I've discussed this in some of my other unfiltered videos before, where I do have an extensive background in those types of things. And I truly feel like Patrick Ta really addressed this issue in the wrong way. I understand that maybe there was some testing. I get that. I get that brands do that. I get that, you know, having concerning things happening with your product, it can really hit the pocketbook of the company pretty hard if something comes to light of it. And there are some things that I have a great opinion on, and you've kind of heard a little bit of it as we're going through this video. But here's my unfiltered thought and what I think Patrick Ta really should have done instead of what they did. So the first thing, I mean, address the issue. That is definitely something that the brand did, obviously, because they addressed the issue. Patrick Ta made a statement. Awesome. That's the first step to reconciliation. I say I'm laughing. I'm kind of making a joke, but I'm not really. But making a statement like, you know, we do understand that mold has been possibly found in our product. We're going to do some testing and we're hiring XYZ lab to do the testing on this makeup. And that would make sense. Anybody else agree? Like, do you think that would make sense? I think that would make sense. Hiring a third-party lab to do it instead of, you know, inside, like we don't know who did the testing, but announcing, you know, if they do third-party testing, you know, we have somebody who is going to be doing our testing for us. And, you know, publish. I'm looking for a brush. I'm looking for a brush. But anyway, like acknowledging that there is a problem, coming out with a statement that isn't for or against what is going on, but acknowledging that there is a problem. That's what Patrick Ta should have done. And from my understanding, I believe they more so took the offensive than what they did with actually, you know, acknowledging that there was a problem and addressing it, because it honestly took a long time for Patrick Ta to even address the mold issues. With that being said, and because it took them such a long time to even address the fact that there have been issues in the makeup, you would think that they would have come from a non-biased perspective and been like, look, we acknowledge that consumers are having problems with the product. We are going to investigate, like interview people at the lab where you get your makeup produced, and then also, do some actual testing on the makeup, have people possibly send in their makeup that, obviously replace it, but send in, have people send in the makeup that, has been having problems, have it officially tested, and then do a recall. Do a recall on the makeup. And honestly, now that I think about it and now that I'm stating it, like, why go through all those loops anyway? Why not just issue a statement as a brand that you are going to be replacing you're going to be replacing the makeup with something that is a little bit more reliable, because at the end of the day, and as like stated before, when you have a formula that all of a sudden has changed, it may not necessarily be mold, but the formula has changed, which could very possibly mean that the formula has gone bad. And you don't want to put something that's gone bad on your eyes or on your face, because it can cause a multitude of problems. Like, you can get breakouts, you can get infections, you can get eye infections. Like, why risk the lawsuit when you could simply just replace the makeup? And there have been several brands that I know of that have either replaced makeup or they have gone and so like a prime example of this, and not a mold issue, but just a prime example of a brand who sent makeup replacements. I had a dragon fruit collection eyeshadow palette that I bought a couple years ago, and the brand actually reached out to its customers and was like, I know if you've bought a dragon fruit palette, then let us know, because a lot of people were having problems with the packaging breaking and it wasn't like standing up to like the test of use. So they actually put out a statement like, if you bought the old release of the dragon fruit palette, we're re-releasing it in a better packaging, and all you have to send us is your order number and pictures of the product and like of the packaging being broken, and they sent you a replacement palette. They sent you a replacement, not like the eyeshadows, but they sent you a replacement, like, packaging palette, which I thought was honestly so, like, that's how you build trust with your customer base, when you do things like that. Even though my first dragon fruit palette had been bought a couple of years ago, right when the collection had released. So my order was a couple years old, but Clionus still replaced the eyeshadow palette. They replaced the palette for me, which was amazing. And I know that the overhead for replacing like the packaging of a palette is different than replacing, like, the product inside. But still, Cleona is a small, independently owned makeup brand. And for them to, offer to replace the packaging of that palette for free, and all you had to do was prove that you had it and that it was broken, that is amazing for an indie brand to do. And if they can do something like that, then Patrick Ta, who's this huge brand, can do something like that too. And there are so many stories of how like a lot of brands have done that, and how, maybe they've had problems with their manufacturing in the past, and maybe they have mold in their makeup and they've replaced it and offered to replace it for free. And at the end of the day, by uh ignoring ignoring, that these claims are happening, and, coming up with some half-baked lame excuse that, the eyeshadow is just being exposed to air and it's not mold, it really loses trust with the brand, especially considering that you are paying upwards of $70 plus for this high-end makeup, and all of a sudden, like, you can't use it anymore because something happened to the formula and it's gone bad. It has, like, I'm not putting something super sketchy on my eyes that has like little white puffs and dots in it. Like, that's just a little bit sketch to me. I would not put something like that on my face, like, not at all. It would be going in the bin, and I would be very, very disappointed in the fact that I spent, my very hard-earned money on a product like this, only for it to go bad 6 months later and for it to show signs that it's possibly molding. For small indie brands to acknowledge that, something is going on with their packaging and they're going to be replacing the packaging for you, that is a huge thing. in my humble opinion, because there is a great cost even just in packaging. There is a great overhead when you spend money on packaging. And, for other brands to completely, give you a replacement product because it's moldy, that's also huge, especially for independently owned makeup brands like Melt Cosmetics is independently owned. They offered replacements for anybody who had moldy palettes. So it's not unheard of, and it's not something that is taken lightly. Like, it should be something that is taken pretty seriously when you hear that your product is having a lot of problems and then all of a sudden the formulation is changing. That means that the formulation is unstable. And I don't want to be putting unstable formulations on my face. Let's be honest with you. Especially when, people are just getting them, and then, maybe a couple weeks to a couple months later when they're using them, they open them, and then all of a sudden their Patrick Ta eyeshadow palette has mold or what looks like mold, and it's rather sketchy. And the brand, instead of taking the approach of it's not us, it's you, it's the air, they could take the high road, build more brand trust, and they could just be like, okay, we'll replace your palettes for you because we understand that this is sketchy. We understand that you guys are a little bit apprehensive about putting these on your eyes, and we're just going to replace it for you. Because at the end of the day, okay, they didn't address the problem. Now you have a lot of people who used to buy Patrick Ta who got moldy makeup or whatever's going on with the formulation, consequently. And, the brand just kind of washed it away and they didn't really do anything about it. And it really loses the trust of the consumer. And it's not a great brand move by any means at all. And the brand should have acknowledged, which they did, but they should have done more. They should have replaced. You should have replaced it. You should have just offered to replace the makeup, because now you have a lot of people who bought Patrick Ta, had a problem with it. He didn't address the problem. They've lost complete faith in that brand, and now he's losing out on, he's losing out on so much more than just sales. He's losing out on, by making a decision like that, it really tarnishes your reputation as a brand owner, as a makeup artist, as a like as a makeup brand. It just really tarnishes your overall reputation. And in the business of owning a business, reputation is everything. That is one thing I learned when I worked in cybersecurity, is that reputation is literally everything. And that concept applies to the same thing when it comes to the beauty space. Actually, really, when it comes to any kind of, business. Let's say it's a construction company and they don't do a really good job, and then all of a sudden somebody writes a review about something that construction company didn't do, and now their reputation is tarnished because that person had a really bad experience with them. So instead of one-offing it, writing it off to oh, it's been exposed to the elements, they should have gone a step further, build some trust with their audience, and just really honed in on the fact that okay, it may not be mold, but something's going on. Let's just replace these. Yes, overhead, it probably would have been a lot of overhead for the brand, but that at the end of the day, you're also building more brand trust with consumers and potential consumers instead of losing brand trust and reputation with consumers and potential consumers. I do know that once I heard about the Patrick Ta controversy and once I heard about moldy makeup, I was like, and they're not doing anything? Like, what? It really hit the nail on the head, and I was like, well, I was wanting to try some of Patrick Ta's products before, but I know it's really pretty penny. And then I hear about the controversy of the makeup going bad rather fast, and I'm like, okay, well, you just lost that customer there. So it's not just, they're losing the customer that bought the palette to begin with that's having problems, but they are also losing that potential customer, the one who has been on the fence about the brand. And then we see, this kind of reaction and this kind of response, and we're like, you guys let that happen? What is going on? So I'm going to finish up my makeup real quick, put my mascara on, and then we will finish off this video with my final thoughts. Okay. So now all my makeup is done. I have my mascara on, I have my lips done. If you guys are curious to see what I put on my face today, definitely go check out my Shop My Stash video because it has like everything that I put into my makeup bag. And I also have like a new makeup releases video which features this skin tint right here and some other things. So definitely go check that out. But let's finish up all about the Patrick Ta controversy. At the end of the day, the Patrick Ta controversy brings to light some key things that we really need to focus on, and the biggest one is the importance of transparency and brand transparency. While it may have been found that, maybe Patrick Ta and his eyeshadows are not moldy by any means at all, there's still something going on with the product, and the more transparent the brand is, the more forthcoming the brand is, the better it looks in the eyes of the consumer and the, potential consumer. Obviously it's something that I am very passionate about saying. Reputation is everything, and being transparent about what is going on with the product is the number one way to build a better customer base, build a more loyal customer base, because they know at the end of the day that they can trust that brand with what is going on their face. So I'm also doing a little PSA, a public service announcement. If you own something Patrick Ta, make sure you do a quick check of it. Look and see if anything is going on with the cream product, if anything is going on with the powder product, if you see like a random weird growth on it, if it smells like a dirty crayon, or like the smell of like expired Play-Doh, or like silly slime, or like anything like that. If it smells like expired or weird or off, and the product didn't have a smell before, then definitely look into replacing that product because it probably went bad. If you ever notice anything is off with that product, whether you bought it yesterday or whether it is, a couple months old, if you notice anything off with that product, I honestly encourage you to let the brand know, because it could be something happened when it was being made and the ingredients were off and it ended up expiring sooner. It could just be anything in the brand. It needs to be made aware of that as well. So that is my public service announcement when it comes to expired makeup. If you have a Patrick Ta, an eyeshadow palette or anything Patrick Ta, definitely it's a PSA for that as well. Just check your product, make sure that it is not gone bad. All right, guys, that is it for today's unfiltered makeup opinion, the controversy behind Patrick Ta, the moldy eyeshadow, and my honest thoughts and opinions about the entire controversy. I will leave linked in the description box and possibly in the eye, if I have not run out of room, some videos that have been posted by other commentary channels regarding the Patrick Ta controversy with moldy eyeshadow, and I encourage you to check those out as well. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. I hope you have considered subscribing before you go. Make sure you give the good old like button and leave me a comment down below what your thoughts are on the Patrick Ta moldy eyeshadow controversy. I hope I get to see you in my next video. Bye!